Hello and welcome back! Sorry for the lack of videos recently. I was on a brief late summer holiday with my friends on the Greek island of Rhodes and we had an absolute blast. I was mesmerized by the hospitality of the Greek people and the beautiful scenery. It's surreal to be home again after this short adventure, but life goes on, I guess. As you might have guessed, Macross is a monumental series that is very special to my heart. Unfortunately though, with a small exception, there are hardly any affordable scale figures from the male characters. The female characters seem to be the selling point of the franchise. So I thought now it would be the time to set things in motion and fire up my 3D printer to do something about this. Even before a couple of years ago, for an average consumer, 3D printing seemed to be something very futuristic and too expensive to even consider. However, nowadays, many brands offer different kinds of printers for somewhat of a reasonable price. For a couple of $100s, you can already buy yourself a Resin or an FDM printer, and if you're lucky, you can get even more discounts if you catch a sale. That's how I got my printer and wash and cure machine from Banggood too. This video is not sponsored, by the way, I just want to be transparent with you. I bought my equipment last year, but since I do my paintings and printings in my flat, I'm bound by the seasons of my country. I can only manage the proper ventilation for the printing in warmer seasons, so from spring to the end of summer, because I can leave the balcony doors and windows open, but during the colder months it's obviously not possible. This is why I only started to print recently, because up until so far I was experimenting and learning the know-how, the settings, etc. There were some prints that turned out fine, some deformed, so it was a lot of trial and error. By now I found the settings that work for me, the right type of resin, so everything was good to go. On a site called calls3d.com, I found a lot of exciting Macross models based on the original series and the gorgeous movie Do You Remember Love? They were all by the designer called Oim, I hope I pronounced that right. And I did buy a couple of models from them, and I will surely buy more, but today we will be looking at this Ichijou Hikaru design. Hikaru is one of the protagonists of the original Macross TV series from 1982 and the Do You Remember Love movie in 1984. His character was voiced by the late voice actor Arihiro Hase, who is sadly not in this world anymore, but nevertheless gave a great performance as the main hero Hikaru, which was his debut and breakout role. In the American version, the character was voiced by Vic Mignogna. This orange suit version is what we are going to do today. After buying, downloading and extracting the file, I noticed that the model has several versions. The one I bought originally last year was a one-piece fowl with or without helmet, but the designer updated it this year with a modified posture, with arms and legs separated, and with 3 different styles how he can hold his arms. However, all parts seem to be in one single file only, so I didn't really know what to do. I asked OIM for instructions, and I was recommended to separate the files in Blender. Well, I know nothing about Blender, so I did what every sane person would do. I went to YouTube to find any tutorial that would help me. Luckily, I found out that what I'm looking for is quite easy. I just have to import the file, go to edit mode, press the P key, select loose parts in the new pop-up, and voila! Save them one by one, and you are free to use and print them. I opened the parts in the program that came with my Photon Mono X Photon Workshop. I know people usually use other software for editing and slicing. I tried Shittybox, but my prints all turn out weird, so I went back to Photon Workshop and everything seems to be fine now. The next step is usually sizing and hollowing the model, which means you need to punch holes into the figure where the resin will flow out. Now this is something I haven't been able to master that much, as most of my prints degraded and broke after some time, even if I had multiple holes on them for the resin to flow out and did extensive washing programs on them. Somehow resin residue still remained inside their intricate parts and later reacted to the change of cold and warm temperatures and unfortunately broke the models. So I decided to ditch this step, and while I was experimenting, I noticed that with the sizes I work with, there hasn't been much of a significant difference in resin consumption. So I decided to use up a bit more resin so that my prints don't break after a couple of months, so that I don't need to reprint them again. For this figure, for instance, the program calculated less than 200 milliliters of resin after slicing, which is good, I guess. Once I learn more about hollowing, I will give it another try later. This print that I'm going to show you in this video is actually my third try with it. I printed the first design last year, which was a one-piece file covering everything from head to toe. I hollowed it with many holes, allowing the spare resin to flow out, and did an extensive washing session in the wash and cure machine. Nevertheless, the figure simply cracked open in a month or two. Here are some other examples of cracked parts from other figures I tried. The second Hikaru was the same as the first, just without hollowing. I ended up printing him in a smaller size just to see how this method will perform. The painting is kinda meh, but so far it has stood the test of time. So I decided to do this third print without the hollowing too. The next step was to determine the size. Since I plan to print and paint more Macross figures in the future from the same creator, who are similar in size to Hikaru or taller, I looked at the Banpresto figures I have to have an idea for the sizing. The Banpresto Minmei is around 20-21 centimeters tall, and I wanted to print Hikaru somewhat the same size. It's always important to use the same measurements for all parts of the print, or they will not fit together and will look weird. Once you load all the parts to your printing plate that fit, You add supports and slice it, which creates the file for the 3D printer. Hikaru's parts fit 2 plates, and the printing went on totally for about 6 hours. For resin, I always use Anycubic soy-based eco resin. It's more environmental friendly, allegedly less toxic, and barely has any smell compared to regular resin. I set up an Vallejo air purifier to work underneath the covers to reduce the odor even more. After you remove the finished prints from the plate, it's time to give them a thorough bath in IPA or isopropyl alcohol, which removes the remaining resin from the surface. Once they dried, I usually bring out the hairdryer and carefully blow hot air towards them, because that makes it easier to remove the supports without much damage. It's important to remove these before you put the figure under UV light for curing, because they are not hardened yet. I usually set the curing machine to 10-15 minutes depending on the volume and the thickness of the prints, and let it do its job. No matter how careful you try, there will always be little spots remaining where the supports held the prints, so it's sanding time. As this type of resin is usually a lot more sturdy than the anime model kits that we work with, sometimes I need to use more force to even out their surface. Regular sandpaper is often not enough, so my friend Andrea recommended me to try nail technician equipment again. We bought these Japanese Yakuza 80 and 100 grit double-sided nail files last time in Budapest, and I've gotta say, they are doing their job very well. For the base coat, I used Vallejo Surface Primer again. It really grows on me. I think that so far I haven't used a better primer than this. Some future projects are lurking in the background on my desk. Roy Fokker, who was supposed to be the first among these guys but jumped off my desk and partly broke, so I had to repair him. And Max Genius, who also had to have some repairs on his head. For the colors, I went back to my regular Vallejo model color set. The orange, the blue and the brown were definitely featured before in the Toji Suzuhara and Jaina solo videos. I had to mix the skin colors anew though, because I used them up last time completely and now looking back, it kinda turned out to be a bit dark. But it didn't pose a huge problem as Hikaru has a darker complexion in the series anyway. One thing I have to say though, that after printing I noticed that the hat didn't really have a neck part, so I had to sculpt it with the help of Milliput. Same thing happened with one of the legs. While I was busy sanding it, I broke the little part that goes inside the body and attaches it to the torso. It did not turn out that well, or maybe the leg was warped, because I couldn't attach it to the torso 100% so that the figure can still stand unassisted. It's a mistake I let go, to be honest, as it's not going to be visible from the front and who really cares how it looks on the back. I know I'm still learning the whole thing, so I try not to get frustrated on things like this, but still improve my work step by step. As I always struggle what glue I should use, I followed Andy's recommendation again and opted for a nail art glue this time. I think I don't even have to mention my surprise how easy and effective it was compared to model making super glues I tried so far. Here you can already see the gaps I talked about before. It's unfortunate, but I tried to cover them with paint. And there it is. I'm not fully satisfied with it, as I'm still terrible with painting really small details like an eye, but I hope I can improve my craft one day. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the upcoming videos.